Welcome to the Coaching Life Podcast. Got that down now.
You like that, yeah.
Yeah. How's it going, Coach?
Good. You're sticking the post, is what they say in radio terminology.
Very good.
I don't know if that's actually called, if that'd be considered sticking the post or not, because I think sticking the post is where like a radio DJ will talk about the weather and talk about things, and he'll start a song. He or she will start a song, and they will try to talk right up to the point where the first vocal line starts. So like if he starts the song "Sweet Child of Mine" and you got the the slash solo going on in the beginning, right, and all the instrumental, he wants to start. He wants to finish speaking.
She's
right
got
before
a smile. Yeah.
Axel. Yes, break into it, Coach. Go ahead.
That's all they want.
Let's hear it.
That's all anyone else wants to hear.
Well, they want to watch me break dance, and they want to hear you sing. That's what it is.
I would say you're definitely a better break dancer than I am singer.
I did. I got a response about the breakdancing thing, and everybody was pretty shocked, pretty surprised about the fact that I used to dance back in 6th grade. So,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
You know, I used to play clarinet.
Do you still have that thing?
No. I don't know what we did.
My wife played a clarinet back before she started doing in the concert band she played.
That is usually reserved for females. That's why it's not.
Really? Listen. The marching 110 is practicing right now. They're getting ready. I'm seeing.
You seen some males playing some clarinet?
Oh heck yeah!
Really? Are you sure?
I don't equate that to be a female instrument.
I feel like I do.
Uh-oh. You're alienating some folks on our listening
including
audience.
Myself.
Okay, that's right. So like a tuba then is a male instrument?
Yeah.
Like,
tuba. I don't know. Drums, saxophone. I just don't know many. Like unless you're like a musician that I would call. I'm sure like Nick Michael, the band director, can play clarinet. Like for him, that's talent. For me, it's weird.
Those guys could play anything.
Because I could only play Mary Had a Little Lamb. That's all I could play. So.
I played a flutophone in grade school. They call them recorders.
Oh, okay, yeah, good deal.
We called them.
I think everyone has to play.
I got in trouble. I got some bad trouble in 2nd grade though, because every time those things, every time it would hit a sour note, like you'd be playing Mary Had a Little Lamb and someone would squeak it, I would bust out laughing. I would die laughing. And so when I start laughing, now you're trying to play, and it's going,
and they
we're
took
laughing,
that away
and
from
everybody, and it would get contagious, and I couldn't stop laughing. And Mr. Malesic got really mad at us for laughing, and sent us out in the hallway. And you knew what it meant in grade school, down in the Racine Southern School District at Syracuse, when you had to go out in the hallway.
Yeah,
that meant you're getting paddled.
Really?
I got paddled for that.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's rough.
I got paddled a little bit in the grade school. A couple times, one time in 2nd grade, 3 times in 3rd grade, once in 4th, I believe.
I feel like
I think that was all.
That's probably why we're not allowed to paddle kids anymore.
That's all my mom knows about still.
Because when kids would laugh, they'd get paddled. That's pretty.
It was talking too. If I talked out of line, like when it was time when we weren't supposed to be talking,
I could see that. But I mean, a laugh is sometimes. I mean,
well,
sometimes
and
you can't hold a laugh.
I fell out of my chair once. That was another reason. I kept falling out of my chair, out of my desk. I'm serious. I had undiagnosed ADHD.
Yeah,
I guarantee I did. Like if I were going back into school today and I was the same me today that I was then, got paddled. But I didn't do it again. I'll tell you that. I'm not
moving
saying
mountains
that's the
here.
Way.
We're moving mountains here on the Coaching Life Podcast.
That's what you should do to cure ADHD. So what I'm saying is I probably didn't actually have it.
Maybe for the undiagnosed.
It was a little bit of behavioral, a little bit of attention seeking, right? But I know I was hyperactive. Like I could not sit still, man. I could not wait for recess. And I didn't drink Mountain Dew either. So you can't blame it on that. Caffeine.
At Southern?
I had a little. Mountain Dew was a treat. We weren't allowed to drink pop in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my parents did, but It was
Of course.
milk or water, and you know.
Yeah.
And then like Friday night for watching the Dukes of Hazzard, that's a treat. You get a pop. You had some pizza, get a pop. Yeah.
I mean, if you really think about it, a pop is like an ice cream.
It should be.
Nobody eats an ice cream with every meal. Well,
Yeah.
some people might. I don't know. But
Right.
yeah, I got in trouble one time for asking my music teacher, Miss Rouse, why we had to take music.
It's a legitimate question.
I think so. But maybe my attitude wasn't in check. Maybe,
It was how you asked.
yes. Because I thought it was legit. And I still, I don't know.
Did you put like a cuss word in the middle of that?
Nah,
Like, why in
that's,
the do we have to listen to
it's,
music?
But I enjoy
Oh
music
yeah.
now. People, like I was going to say, I enjoy, like in church, I enjoy singing.
Yes. I
But
wish
people
I,
around me don't enjoy my singing. They normally,
It's one of those things that you look back on after being older that you wish you had taken more seriously.
yeah,
I
probably.
certainly wish I had taken music more seriously because one, you know, how often am I playing a baseball game now? Right. The only way for me to stay in the game is to coach it, you know, or to to play it through your children, and that's going to end also.
True.
And so that's why I
Yeah.
always tell your kids, man, learn an instrument because one day the sport's going to be taken away.
Yeah.
You can play that instrument the rest of your life.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. What are we talking about
We
today?
better get right into it today because
Yeah.
one, I think it's going to be really good. First of all, this is going to be a really great episode. I think there's a lot of anticipation in this one.
I mean, it's
You know,
kinda anticlimactic.
one of them, 170 or so really good episodes. This is going to
Yeah.
be one of those. So, but also you have to go to a meeting here in about 50 minutes or so.
right.
50.
I think
50.
50 minutes will be all right.
We'll have this done in 15. You think?
It's done now if we want to get right to it.
It
But
is. There is an answer to the question, and the question is,
what is the perfect sport? Let everyone think about that for a second.
yes.
What is the perfect sport, and why? I guess you could say. So we're going to talk about
That's the big question, right?
yeah, we're
Why?
going to talk about some requirements that we've thought about. I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's going to be others out there that say, well, you got to consider this and that and this, and we're open to that. We could probably revisit the conversation if anyone can give us a reason.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is a subjective conversation, right?
Right.
Because there is no single best or perfect sport because sports are preferences, right? They're cultural. Like people prefer different sports for different reasons, you know, based on personal interest or, you know, culture, skills that you might have, backgrounds, you know, how you were brought up, what your family played. It could be, you know, familial reasons, right?
Yep.
And you know, some people play sports do certain sports for the benefits of it, right? Like
Sure.
running and things, you know, and you know, is exercise a sport? Things that we can talk about, right? But I think
That's a good point.
But I think
CrossFit.
yeah, is you know what makes a sport first
Yeah.
of all, and when we say perfect sport, like we're what at least what I have in mind is like a sport that it offers all of the benefits that you're looking for if you want to be involved in a sport. You know, the exercise benefit, the competitive benefit, the mental strategy benefit, but also, in my opinion, for it to be a perfect sport, I think the perfect sport has the fewest rules,
Ooh.
the fewest regulations.
Yeah.
If it takes a lot to govern the sport that you're playing, I mean,
It's true.
because what is a rule and a regulation? It's a penalty of some sort, right?
Yeah, it makes it difficult
You're playing out of the boundaries of what the sport is intended to be, and so the more of those you have, that's by definition imperfection.
True.
That's the most imperfect, right?
Never really thought about that. So they're you know, right off the top, we're that's a requirement right there that we've.
There you go. Okay, there you
put
go.
around it.
One
We have a
criteria
framework.
is
Limited
how many
rules and
how many
regulations.
rules and regulations. Okay.
So
What
I
are
mean-
some other? You sent me some criteria. I'd like to.
why let's do this. Like what as far as, you know, a sport goes, what sports are we thinking of when it comes to who's the king of limited rules and regulations? What sport is the perfect sport in that realm? It
would be the most imperfect sport, like the sport you talking about. What sport has the most rules and regulations?
Which sport has the least?
Well, there you go. I think I got an answer.
Well,
it took some research, but I've got an argument for one.
Well, I mean, right off the bat, I'm thinking of wrestling. You know,
in terms of rules and regulations, and and penalties and things like that, you probably are right. But I also I did some thinking about wrestling. I got one negative about wrestling.
In terms of rules and regulations, though, or in terms of something else?
No, not in terms of rules and regulations.
Okay.
In terms of what would make it. What is one imperfection?
I mean, there are still plenty of rules.
Every sport has imperfections. Like there is no perfect sport, but we're trying to get the closest, right?
That. We'll talk about that.
But I think
what sports in your mind is the limited rules and regulations?
You want me to go right there, right to it?
Yeah.
I'll say what it is, and then we'll have to come back to it.
Okay. I don't know.
Well, because I think we should develop our criteria to what we think. I think Australian football.
Here's what
Australian football
is the answer to limited rules and regulations.
Is one of the sports that has the fewest rules and regulations. And I'll tell you. Listen. I did my research on this one, buddy.
You'd have to because I'll be honest with you. I've never heard of Australian football.
You ever watched it?
No. Like, why is it?
You ever watched Australian
Why
football?
wouldn't we consider that just football?
Oh, it's not at all football.
It's not?
No. They play
American football.
They play on an oval.
I guess
Australian football is it looks more like rugby, but there's some different rules that are different from rugby.
So,
all right. Well, I'll go into Australian football here. I'll throw it out as a sport that I think is a contender for the perfect sport.
Okay.
That's one of them.
But does it have limited rules and regulations?
It does.
Okay.
The only things that you cannot do is like you can't do something dangerous.
Okay. So gouge an eye.
You can't push from behind. There's tackling involved, and I will say this: they don't wear pads. Okay. There's tackling involved, but there's rules about how you can tackle. Basically, you have to hit and wrap. You can't push from behind, and you can't hit in the head. Or basically, all of the tackling has to take place below the head and above the knees. So from shoulders to knees.
But
so
do they get first downs?
Basically like a defensive lineman now on a quarterback, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Do they get first downs?
No, there is no downs. The way you score in Australian football is by kicking the football-sized type ball through. So they play on an oval, and the game is constantly being played. And you've got these like goalposts, and the aim is to kick the ball through, like as you're running with the ball, as you've got the ball, to kick it through the goalpost. And actually, there's a lot of scoring in it, which I think is a benefit to being. I think that's one of the criteria that there's a lot of scoring that takes place. Like
really,
I think that could be the action, right? Like there's scoring is at a premium. Like there's not a ton of points scored, but at least there's points scored. You're not running up and down a field for 3 hours and come away with a 0-0 score. Like there is a sport that happens with, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of them that kind of that could happen with. So anyway, there's some different. Like the only rules are like you can't tackle or hold a person without the ball, and you can't throw the ball, but you can bat it like a volleyball. You could kick it. You could tap it. Whatever you got to do, you have to pass it within 15 meters, which is about 50 feet. So like you can run with it and try to avoid getting tackled. But a tackle can be something, and I think this is the biggest contention in Australian football. The biggest contention is what constitutes a hold. Because like your goal as a defensive player is to hold the person with the ball. And that's what a tackle is. So you try to tackle them. So you either take them to the ground, right, or you grab hold, you stop them from running. And
for a period of time.
As soon as you're being held, and that's the judgment call on the refs, right? The refs have to determine, because as soon as if you have the ball and you've been tackled, which means you've been held or you've been taken to the ground, you've got to get rid of the ball. You have to fumble the ball, basically. You can't keep hold of the ball. So you're avoiding getting tackled, much like football, right? But once you do get tackled, you have to get rid of the ball. So there either has to be a teammate nearby, and if there's not, that's where a turnover takes place and it switches possession. But the action is constant. There is no, if it goes out of bounds, the referee basically throws it back in play. And then you just go from there. And so there's no, it's nonstop. Yeah. So I mean, there's an argument there, I think.
How would it, from a rules perspective, how would it compare to soccer?
There's a lot more scoring, so that's a contrast to soccer.
Right.
You can use your hands. I mean, you can carry the ball, run with it.
Which
there is no goalie. I mean, you're kicking it through a goalpost practically.
Right. Which I want. So, okay.
Did you pull up a picture of an Australian football field?
No, I didn't. I've got a Excel sheet here trying to.
Okay. Oh, you filling it out?
Yeah.
All right.
So let's go through our criteria.
Here, I've got. So, because this is the most contentious piece, so I'll read it. What counts as a tackle in Australian football is basically when an opponent holds the player with the ball between the shoulders and the knees, then that player is required to dispose of the ball, assuming that they've had prior opportunity to do so, right? Like if you get hit as soon as you get the ball, then the referee will let you keep hold of the ball for a little bit longer, right? If they fail to do so, the tackling player is awarded a free kick. So, like if you get held and you keep the ball, the referee will blow the whistle, give the ball to the tackling player. That person can kick it down toward their end of the scoring zone.
Yeah.
If you hit the ground, you may still dispose of the ball. The thing about, like, just because you, like in football, when you hit the ground, you're down, right? Well, in Australian rules, like if you get tackled and you hit the ground, which you often are hitting the ground when you get tackled, just because you've hit the ground doesn't mean that you're down. Like, oh, his knee's down, we get the ball. No, you could still, like, as soon as you hit the ground, you could still dispose of the ball to a teammate from there. But if you don't dispose of it immediately, then it goes to the other play. And so that's the one point, like on Australian football forums and things that I've read, that's the one point that I've seen people arguing on in terms of rules. So it's an imperfection.
So, and I would say what you're thinking, in terms of rules and regulations, it's really about what can easily be judged. So, like,
Yes.
Someone has to make a judgment call on that. So it makes it more difficult.
If there's a human being that has to make a judgment call, that's, like, I feel like one of the big criteria.
So, like in basketball, you have charges and
fouls. And
did they get to
and depending on how the game is being called, you have a lot of stoppages of play because of
and then in
rule
football,
breakages,
you have holding,
right?
You have pass interference, you have hit to the head.
You're talking about a governed sport,
quarterback, roughing the quarter.
They don't know what a catch is.
That's true, right? Yeah, so we put all this judgment into games. Certain games.
It's gotten worse because of more regulations. I really think, Pat, to kind of back up a little bit and talk about the criteria for what you and I think criteria should be for a perfect sport is, I really think that the rules, the guideline, like the rules of the sport, like the sport itself should determine the winner or loser, the win-loss outcome of the game, of the contest, right? Rather than a human being that is not participating in the sport.
Right.
So that would be a judge or an official of some sort. So right away, that takes, because again, one of the sports I have in my list for being athletes that I am extremely envious of in terms of their physique and their ability is gymnastics.
Right. But they're judged.
The problem with gymnastics, and this is going to be, I have a strong opinion about this, is you could be really great and have a really crappy judge that day, and you lose.
Right.
Or you had a human being determined whether or not what your outcome was.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, but there's a panel and they've got objective criteria and they're scoring for certain things, And my thought there is, well, but it's objective and they're scoring, but why are the judges' scores different?
True.
Right.
Right.
If it's objective, then the scores should all be the same.
Right. And that was when I thought of wrestling.
And that's the one downfall I have for that. Like, yeah, most of the time you're going to determine who wins because you're going to beat the other person.
It's will versus will, which is one of the challenges. One of the criteria that I like is when your will as a human being is challenged, and I think wrestling tops that. It's one of the top sports.
Is there never a judge?
There isn't a judge, but the official determines
who
points
wins,
and when they do certain things.
Like if nobody gets pinned or nobody.
And I know. Well, even a pin. Which would
that's a judgment call. Yeah,
that would end the match.
Right.
Is a judgment call.
Yep.
So you think about
and I don't see. I don't go. I should go to more wrestling matches. Like, do people argue whether or not
they do?
Someone is pinned or not?
Yes, and argue whether they did something they weren't allowed to do, which got them, didn't get them a point, or they do. There is a lot of stuff like that. So as I was thinking, that was the one thing about wrestling that kind of makes it difficult, a distraction, a negative, tough. Because that person has so much power.
I know.
In regards to the competition, well, I mean, in the game of baseball, we have umpires, right? That could impact every play. However, that umpire cannot, on one decision, say one team wins over another. A call could cost.
My argument for that would be when you break down the number of plays that take place in a baseball contest,
right? Yes.
Versus the number of decisions an umpire might make to influence. There is zero chance that the umpire cost a baseball game.
No, there's another episode, isn't it?
I really don't believe. I mean, you had 9 innings to beat that team, right?
You really can never blame the umpire.
You can't.
There's always something you could do better. You can be mad at them.
Sure. You could be really disappointed because, the final call cost your team or whatever.
Yeah. Or a big one.
You had chances.
But yeah, you can't do that.
And maybe a wrestler would say the same thing. Hey, I had my chances. It shouldn't be up to the judge, right? It shouldn't be up to the ref. But
true, yeah.
But there's not as many chances though.
Yeah.
Right?
And the power, there's just so much power. Yeah.
I find the same thing to be true in the game of volleyball. Like, I love the sport of volleyball. But one of the things that's always been an irritation to me, a pet peeve of mine, is that, refs score points.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, now there is no side out anymore in volleyball. Remember those days when you couldn't score on defense, right? Or when you didn't have the ball, possession of the serve. Of course, volleyball games were going all day long. Because
I bet volleyball purists hated when they went to rally point.
Rally point,
like we hate when they put the pitch clock in.
That was the right move, though, right? Don't you agree? Like,
it was.
I'm not a volleyball guy, and I'm
volleyball games took forever.
A point, and But one of the problems I find is, especially like with the double hit. I know the NCAA has practically gone away from the double hit. Like, unless it's a clear advantage that the ball is was hit twice.
And one thing you really don't like is some officials call it completely different than others.
Yeah.
So you could get away with it for 3 weeks doing it a certain way, and then you get in a volleyball game with a certain official, and they call it over and over and over and over again.
If it adjusts the way you have to coach your players.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
You're having to coach. You're gonna have to coach a setter based on how an official calls. I have never coached a pitcher based on how an umpire calls. Never.
Really?
I've let them know, hey, this guy likes the outer half, so we're gonna live out there.
Yeah, that's true.
But I've never,
change your mechanics.
in practice, said you better change your mechanics because this umpire.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Maybe with a balk, or something, But that's, I mean.
Yeah. So what about like something like ping pong? As far as rules and regulations go.
Well, let's go through some of your criteria here. and then that
I'm not putting
that might answer the question.
Let's go through the criteria.
That's a good idea.
I see. I didn't have
the coaching life criteria for perfect sport.
Full engagement within live ball periods. So when the game's live, you have to be doing something.
There's full engagement.
Yes. You can't be.
When the game is live.
When the game is live.
So so there is basically there's room for you then to say, like, you're not saying like we got hockey as a vote for a couple of from a couple of different people actually hockey's hockey's up there, I would say.
Absolutely.
And one of the arguments is that there's always full engagement.
Yes.
Like there's never a time during a hockey match except for when it's the end of the period.
Right.
When it slows down. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I guess that's not true. They have to drop a puck sometimes, right? So there's a time to catch your breath.
Oh, sure.
Right.
But the ball's not
live.
There's
a penalty
the puck's not live.
Get it. Where it's not live there.
Yeah,
but that happens pretty
you have
infrequently.
timeouts and stuff.
And there's timeouts, right?
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, even like substitutions, guys are like
it's quick.
diving off the ice and you know. But you're
hockey's
saying,
a good sport where you have to be engaged. There's almost all the time.
No question that every player, football, on every down, every player is fully engaged. Well, you watch those wide receivers sometimes, maybe not.
That's true.
All right, the plays away from them, and it's a running play, and they're supposed to be out there blocking or doing whatever, and they don't do anything. But that's rare too. I mean, for the most part,
probably
your best football teams, all 11 guys know what they're doing.
But it's a negative to it, I think.
Right.
I would say, and I think about basketball. I think about
being away from the ball,
and not being as engaged. I think basketball purists would say you have to be mentally engaged in those moments too. But I mean, there's times when
that would be my argument with baseball.
Well, of course.
I mean, it may not be coming to me. The play isn't coming to me, but I've got some place to be and something to do on every single pitch.
Right, and you're always moving. When the ball's live, you're doing something. You should be doing something.
Yeah.
The good teams are doing something. But yeah, so full engagement in live ball periods.
Okay. What else you got?
Here's why I think Australian football probably trumps soccer, because I think the perfect sport would promote athleticism and dexterity in multiple parts of the body, not just some parts of the body. You know what I mean? So I would say you could use ping pong as an example, where you have to have good hand-eye coordination. You're using your hands. Mm-hmm. How much? You could argue with your feet. You got to be able to move your feet as well. But that's the point. So you have to be fast.
Full body.
You have to be
engagement,
strong. You have to be skilled. You have to be smart. You have to use the more parts of your body that you have to be good with.
By every player that's participating in the sport.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Not just a skill position player, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another one.
I like it.
Each competitive unit, whether it be an athlete or a team, which I think that's a criterion itself, but whether it be an athlete or a team, gets an equal opportunity to win.
Yes, 100%.
So everybody gets their shot. There's not a time clock. In football, one of the knocks of football would be, this team had possession for
right
40 minutes while this team
time
had
of possession is one of the strategies.
Yes.
Right, for
keep
some
the
teams.
ball away, they can't score.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So for me, the more opportunity that you have to win, and the more equal it is between the teams or between the athletes, it's better. And in terms of wrestling, there's a time clock in wrestling.
Yeah,
and you only get certain amount.
That's
of time.
why you get to the points portion
Correct.
of it, right?
Right.
And raising of the arm of who won.
Right. Hockey.
If you're standing there and you're thinking, I bet I won this, and then your arm doesn't go up, that might be a problem.
Yes.
You should know whether or not you won the game.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean that's a problem.
And that's that goes back to your rules and regulations.
Speaking of winning and losing, let's take it back a step.
Yeah.
In order for it to be the perfect sport, there's got to be a winner and a loser. There's got to be competition. Because some people will say, well, running, right?
Just running?
Weightlifting.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're in a weightlifting competition.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Right.
If you're in a race, yeah, like, and you might be doing an athletic. So, like, for it to be a sport, there has to be a winner and a loser.
Well, that's what I think.
Winners and losers.
Some people might argue, and they have argued with me on this, but I think, cheerleading is a sport. You can compete,
even though they're not competing on Friday night or Tuesday whenever they're cheering for a team.
Right, I think that skews people's thoughts
Yes.
about them because of that. Whether they're not competing. Yes, they are. There's cheerleading competitions.
Yeah.
And by the way,
and that's probably going to be the way, because we kind of ranted on that at the end of our podcast last week, that cheerleading is a sport. But in order for it to be a sport, you got to get into some competitions, though.
Yes.
Right. I
Right.
mean, I think that's. because you got to go somewhere and win and compete and lose.
Yeah.
You win or lose, right? You got to put yourself on the line there.
I think we have cheerleading squads in schools that want to do that, but they're hindered by the fact that they are not an OHSAA.
Yeah. I know the
sanctioned
Athens
sport.
squad has been doing that for years. They go and compete. Megs does now, right?
I think they want to. I don't know that they
Melissa,
started yet.
I thought she's taken them to some competitions.
I don't know for sure. We talked a little bit about it the other day.
Mixed up with her.
I would say the same. And here's one that people aren't going to.
There is competitive cheerleading though, right?
There's competitive cheerleading.
Yeah.
There's also band competitions, marching.
Well,
band
there you go.
competitions.
There's winners and losers there, right?
And there's winners and losers. Now, there's a lot of judging that goes on there.
And doing an art at the same time, right? Like you got to be in shape. Listen, the marching 110 here at Ohio University, that's a friggin' sport.
No doubt.
Watch what those guys do, right? They got to be in shape.
And in those competitions, they have equal opportunity to win.
And that's a good point. Yeah.
They're using their feet. They're using their hands. Got to be smart, right? There's some points there.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Here's where it might get dinged a little.
More criteria. Another criteria. Yeah.
The challenge of will, either between notably between two individuals. I would say you have to, and I think people could make the argument that that's true for every sport. There's a little bit of challenge of will for anything in competition. That's true, but I think there's sports that lend more to it. So in football, you've got two guys lined up across from each other, one guy's going to go at the other guy, and
you have a lot of little one-on-ones there, but you also have inside of those one-on-ones there's a strategy for the entire team, like a scheme that's going to help the entire team to be successful in that little 4-second moment.
Right.
And that's one of the things, that's one of the things I love about football is I think it's the ultimate team sport in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Because you're doing things, especially on those offensive linemen, you're doing things every down that nobody notices.
It's true.
And
that's how you know they're good offensive linemen.
Exactly.
You never see them.
As soon as they call your number, buddy, that's because you did something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah,
that's good. What was I going to say? Wrestling. Wrestling's a great example for the challenge of will.
Against the will, yeah.
It's a good one. And then here we've already talked about it a couple of times, but it involves team strategy. I think you have to have a strategy around it. Now, when you go, like, let's say boxing, for instance, or UFC, mixed martial arts.
Yeah, MMA. Yeah. Tennis,
yeah.
Like singles.
Yeah.
Tennis tough sport.
Tennis is tough.
I can talk about tennis.
You got to, in tennis, and this is why I'd say ping pong, but tennis, you better know how to use your feet. Your footwork's very important.
How tough tennis was. I'd never played it much, outside of going down to the Syracuse tennis courts, there and just hitting the ball over hitting it like a pickleball probably or whatever. I guess people get pretty.
That's big. Yeah, be careful. Be careful.
But
pickleball fits in a lot of these
tennis
categories.
Isn't hard, it was just something we did for leisure. Well, then I get to college. My freshman year roommate played tennis in high school. In Westerville. And he's like, hey, you want to go play some tennis? I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that in the fall. Like we were just getting to know each other, and he showed me how to play tennis.
And
I'm like, all right. And here I am competitive. I'm like, I want to beat this guy. Well, I'm not going to beat him. He's played.
So there's the challenge of wills.
So we started getting after it. And I tell you something, I was as sore as I have ever been for a week after that. Most of it was right here in your like in the tennis elbow
just from
area,
swinging over and over again.
And but also your lower body, your quickness, the speed, the agility that you have to have, the endurance that you have to have. I gained a new respect, because it was a sport that I admittedly made fun of when I was a kid. Look at them shorts.
I've played tennis my whole life. I really liked
shorts
it.
Those guys are wearing. They got the sweater tied around there. Preppy sport, right? And we didn't grow up in preppy area.
That's tennis you see in movies, Coach.
I mean, Pat's Pat's always been a preppy, but I wasn't a preppy. No. So anyway, I have a new respect. I developed a new respect for tennis. Tennis is on the list for me.
Yeah, tennis is great sport.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Oh, I was gonna say, as far as team strategy, like boxing, you have a team that prepares you for a fighter.
That's true.
There is,
Well,
NASCAR,
and every at the end of every round, you're going back to a corner,
Yes.
and you're getting coached up by a team of people.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, NASCAR, you have a team. You've got guys that
and
are
they're
putting
doing more
tires.
team stuff now. I think that's a criticism by some of the NASCAR purists, isn't it?
Oh, really?
Some of the
They don't
team-
like it that they're going to because some
people like
guys
it,
are
some
letting
don't.
other people
I don't know anything
win.
about NASCAR, so I'm speaking out of my
Yeah,
rear
me
end
too.
here,
That
but-
is true, though. They do have teams. I don't think they score as a team, but like if you're on the same
But like
team,
you're not always necessarily trying to. I guess you are trying to win, but
no, but you are.
You
But
want your
if you
team
can
to
help,
win.
like if your teammate's in the points race
yeah,
and you can help him score points, you'll probably do that as opposed to
You'll take one for
leaving
the
him
team.
behind. Yeah,
yeah, huh?
yeah. Some people might not like that. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Like I need to study up more on it. I know more about Australian football now than I know about NASCAR.
Really,
That's my little study.
My father-in-law and brother-in-law love NASCAR.
Really?
Did,
Yeah,
did
a
you
lot of
see?
people do.
Did you see? Shoot, was it Yankees Braves are going to play next year in Bristol, the Bristol Speedway? They're building.
They're building a field in there
in the middle, and I was like, I'm talking about
It would be tiny.
No, see,
The field would be tiny.
No, incorrect. Look at pictures. Look it up online.
Is Bristol a small track?
No. Well, yes, it is a small track
Yeah.
compared to other ones. There's plenty of room for a full-fledged baseball field.
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
the-
That's what I'm saying. The field would look tiny inside the track.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes, right, yes, it does. Like, but that was my question to my.
When you compare,
I was like, Jeff, how are they going to put that in there? He's like, oh, there's plenty of
build
room.
3 or 4 stadiums in the infield.
It looks like they can.
Yeah.
At least 2 from the picture that I saw. I was like, wow, I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's hard to
I've
see
never been to Bristol or anything because
Oh yeah, I've been to a NASCAR race.
you have.
The Firecracker 400 in 1984. The winner was Tim Richmond, and the next year he was killed in a plane crash. He drove a Hardee's car. It was memorable.
That
I
story
remember all
took a
this.
turn for the worse quick.
It did. I mean, but yeah, that's probably one of the reasons I remember it. But yeah, it was.
Where
it
was the
exciting.
Firecracker 400?
Daytona Firecracker
okay.
400. Yeah, my uncle used to work at the track, and we went down for vacation one summer, and it was over the 4th of July. And my parents were like, "Let's get tickets to that." And
I'll be darned.
he helped us do that, and we went over and watched it. And the crowd's wild.
I've heard it's pretty amazing to see like the car go by.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And then, and like at first when they're all together, they all go by, and then you're just waiting. They're on the other side. You can still hear them, but on the other side, I mean, it's pretty far away.
Yeah.
And you're waiting, and then as they start getting closer, the crowd starts getting wound up a little bit. But as soon as they go by, go get another beer. Come back. Yeah, go get another beer. So yeah, that's enough NASCAR talk. You had
put a lot
another.
of score-
You had
do you have
another
one?
criteria.
I saved
point.
it
For the last?
because I really think it's a.
Is this the last one? Did you get them all except for this one?
Yeah, if you don't have any other ones, this is.
The only ones that I added was there should be a winner and a loser.
That's
right?
fair.
And then
I
I
mean,
emphasized the fact that the structure of the sport itself must determine the outcome rather than a human being.
Gotcha.
And then I fully agree with the equal opportunity to win.
Yeah.
And listen, baseball, you could be losing 10-0 with 1 out to go, and you still have a chance to win.
Yep.
I mean, there's my
and
argument
you get
for that.
your chance.
You get your chance. Yeah. It's an
never
absolutely
run out of time.
completely equal opportunity.
No, it's not
People are
true.
like, well, no, there's a clock in baseball now, but the clock doesn't determine anything about the outcome of the game.
No.
It doesn't even determine anything about the outcome of the at-bat. That's where the clock is, at the at-bat.
Well, it could. The guy could walk.
Yeah.
If you don't get the
Or you
pitch
get a
off on
strike
time.
called on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Or
anyway,
he could strike out,
You're
yeah.
still in control of it. I mean,
Yeah.
But
It doesn't limit your opportunity.
No,
you
no.
get your chance.
Right.
Within that time.
Right.
You have your chance.
Yeah, I mean,
agree with that.
but by
Any
the
game
same
with that
token,
clock
if you
is
go to a
limited to that.
game, a sport like football or soccer or basketball, if you're up by multiple possessions, like 10 runs, multiple possessions with 10 seconds left,
it becomes harder
it's
to
going to
win.
be really football.
Yes.
You're not winning.
That's why you can see, like, if you're watching football on ESPN or the game tracker, it tells you the probability of
Yes.
the team to win.
Yeah.
And then the later in the game, the higher or lower you get. Yeah. And so any sport with a
Hey,
clock.
listen, in
or
high
anything
school basketball, if I were a coach and we were up by 1 point or 3 points, with 6 seconds left on the clock and the team scores, I would make sure our guys knew, do not take the ball out of bounds. If they're out of timeouts, obviously, right? Because in high school, the clock doesn't stop. Like in college, I think, in NBA, obviously, at the end of the score, like when a ball goes through the hoop, the clock stops until you inbound it again, giving the defense a chance to steal it, right? But I've thought about that before at high school games. Like
you effectively lost the game before the game's over.
Yeah, if they're out of timeouts, just let that. I mean, you could essentially allow 7 or 8 seconds to run off because how many officials are actually
That's
getting
true.
that 5
I never thought about.
second
Yeah, you get
call,
5, but you're right. 6. That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. So yeah, you lose.
When do they start that 5-second call? By the time you get the ball, right?
Yeah.
Take your time. Go grab.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's gamesmanship, but it's a structure issue. So
yeah, right. The big one. And I think this is big, and I don't think people, because everyone gets lost in, professional sports, Major League sports, Major League Baseball. When someone says baseball, they think of Major League Baseball. But when we think of baseball, we think of
Sandlot.
Hey, I was getting to college baseball. We think of Little League Baseball, and we think of Sandlot baseball. And so for me, the criteria that would be used to judge the perfect sport would be it can be played at a very low cost, and that's not just from a equipment perspective, but also from a facilities
perspective.
So
easily attainable facility, right?
Yes,
like you can go and play it in an open field somewhere,
right? Yeah, What is that movie that
Pat? We just destroyed our hockey guys.
Yeah. That's rough
with the cost and the accessible facility.
Yeah, because you got to have ice to play hockey. Now you could play roller hockey, but it's different.
People will tell you it's not the same.
It's not. Yeah.
Or field hockey, running and doing it.
Right.
That'd still be a tough sport.
Yeah. I would say soccer's probably up there. Wrestling's definitely. I mean, wrestling is perfect.
Being cheap.
Yeah.
Like attainable.
Yeah. I mean, you could wrestle.
Sure.
You could wrestle with 3 people basically. An official.
My brother and I proved that growing up. Right?
Well, you wrestled with 2,
it didn't cost
and
us
then
anything.
you argued about who won, so that made it imperfect.
Right. Hey, there was no argument in our house, buddy.
Right, I know. I seen you guys in the same game. There's plenty of arguments going on, mostly with the umpire.
That's right.
The umpires out there never call a Chris Stewart, Jared Stewart baseball game. You cannot win, I promise. But yeah, low cost, so anybody can play it.
Anybody can play it whenever they want to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What sports are at the top of that list?
Well, I mean, like I said, wrestling, baseball.
Yeah, true. I mean, some people might argue baseball like you have to have a glove, a ball to be able to go out and throw. Yeah, you really don't have to. I mean, watch the videos of these kids in the Dominican.
What do they use? They use a little cardboard. They have a glove. It's cardboard.
Yeah, they're practicing baseball until they have enough resources to get a glove.
Right. Yeah. And gloves have evolved so much.
That's true.
From the beginning of the sport.
Yeah, you got a couch pillow.
Yeah, right.
Put your hand
wrestling would be. I mean, basketball. You have to have the rim.
There's limited equipment. Like if you could figure out a basketball, you'd have to find a rim.
Find a court.
Find a hoop.
Yeah, probably not be the easiest to play on anything but a concrete surface.
A
but
peach
you can
basket
do that.
is what they started with. A peach basket.
Yes,
put it up on a ledge and practice basketball.
You can do
that.
that.
If we're talking baseball, developing going back to the old days and developing your own equipment.
I mean, you could play football.
You could throw a football. You could tackle somebody.
Yeah,
you could. Well, honestly,
football.
We did it all the time.
Yep.
We the neighborhoods, the people that had the biggest yards were our football field, and all we needed at that point was a football and some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes small yards.
I would say football might be at the top, and one of the top. I mean,
you really only need a ball
unless
in a
you're
field.
Unless you're arguing here in 2024 that you have to have a helmet that meets the NOxy criteria for concussions. You have to have shoulder pads, and you have to have proper all this equipment in order to be able to play it. Okay.
Yeah.
But if we're going back to 1984 and we're playing in Chris Stewart's backyard,
exactly,
you don't need that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And we probably had concussions and all that too, but that's what it might explain us right now.
But that's the criteria there.
Do you see very many pickup football games anymore? Do you see down in Meigs County, in Middleport area? Do you see anybody playing any football? Like kids just playing? I mean, I know they're playing a lot of video game football, but
yeah,
I mean, obviously isn't the same thing.
No, I don't. Trying to think last time my kids played a pickup football game, and I don't really know that they have. To be honest with you, I would say I see more wiffle ball being played, and even kids going down to the park and playing baseball or hitting baseball down there more than I see football.
What post did you and I see yesterday from the Middleport Youth League about fall baseball?
How many kids?
Baseball and softball. Right?
Yeah.
How many kids are signed up for fall baseball? Do you remember what that number is?
That's like around 800, I think.
It's close to 800 people.
Yeah.
Baseball's a dying sport, Pat.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like these sports that can be played at a low cost are the sports that will always survive.
They will.
Yeah.
And
and that's why I think that's an argument for against travel baseball. Like a lot of people don't like travel baseball because of the cost.
If you're going to force people to have to purchase, to have to spend, to play it, you're going to destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So there's that. But
yeah. And honestly, youth football numbers are down too. Let's be honest.
Oh
right?
yeah.
And you can take that same argument and say we're not seeing any pickup football games in these neighborhoods anymore. I mean, kids aren't enjoying just playing when they're kids, and so they're looking forward to being that guy. There are more options for them. So why do I want to go out and get beat around? Especially when I'm being told that I might die from CTE or something.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to minimize that. I don't mean to say that in a disparaging way, because that is a risk, right? But it's also a reality for why kids and their parents are steering away from.
Yeah,
I think a kid comes home to mom and dad and says, "Hey, I'm going to go down the street and play a pickup football game with my buddies today." Would your mom have hesitated to say, "Oh, okay, make sure you're home for dinner"?
Yeah. No.
Matter
Matter of fact, I think
mine would have pushed me out the door to say, "Okay, get out there and play." Yeah, do it.
I'm thinking like on my 11th birthday, we invited a bunch of kids over. We played football. That's what we did. We went out and played full tackle.
Oh yeah. When we say we're talking about full tackle football here, Australian rugby style football, right?
Yeah. I think that I don't know. You see these teams when Marietta came to play the other night.
Had the extra padding on their helmets.
Padding, and it's like
what they're practicing in. Yeah.
Why? And I'm like, why? If those work, why aren't they playing in the games with them? That's
right.
But I think the idea has evolved a little bit, and I think the conversations expanded to, well, there's a push now to say, okay, don't start playing football later. Don't play when you're in third grade. Play when you get older, your body's more developed, yada, yada, yada. So that you have less aches and pains, your body takes less of a toll. But I mean, you can make
the reality is you can be just as successful if you wait that long to play.
I think a lot of people are doing
you play,
I think a lot of kids are doing that. Heck, both of my kids did it.
Well, there you go.
Officially, as of this year,
I think it's probably beneficial, for a skilled position like the quarterback. You have a lot of things that you've got to learn.
You do.
And develop. Yeah. There's a development aspect to that. And I certainly don't want to say that there isn't any development for offensive linemen, because we know that there is.
Well,
our offensive linemen have been meeting every single week at Eastern since the season ended last year.
But I think there's an argument there for flag football, because you can work on some of that.
A lot of the skills, 7-on-7 type
in football, flag football. Yeah. Even 11-on-11.
Right.
A line can work on their blocking skills.
Yeah.
For footwork skills and things like that.
Yep.
And so,
true.
It's evolving. I don't know.
Either way,
there's a risk to everything.
Perfect sport, and we don't have much time. So
that's true. But I mean, the truth is that, and I don't know. But at one time, more kids died yearly playing baseball than any other sport.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an actual fact.
At one time,
I do know that that OHSAA has put out there, I think, or maybe NFHS has put out that soccer is a sport that has caused more concussions than football too.
Yeah. Yes, but you got to think from a baseball perspective. how many kids were playing baseball, how many baseball games were going on,
probability,
and
factor,
why did they die, and things like that. There's risk to everything in life. I think it's something that I'm learning as I grow old as a parent, that you're going to worry and you're going to be concerned, regardless. But I mean, my son told me, he's like, if you don't want me to play, I won't play football. And I said, well,
here recently,
yeah. I said, well, just because I don't want you to play football doesn't mean I'm not going to let you play football. And but no,
that's tough.
Because
Jeremiah just started playing football for the very first time.
Yep.
2 weeks ago,
on short notice,
as an 8th grader.
Yes,
right?
And Jake did the same thing in the 8th grade. Now Jake started from the beginning, but he loves it.
Yeah, that's great.
If there is an element to that, like I feel like football is a sport that when the kid starts to play it, they fall in love with it.
Yeah,
they love it.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
Not everybody, but a lot of kids do.
Right. So. The experience is one that's easy to fall in love with, especially in high school.
Yeah,
it's easy to have that tainted when you go to college too, depending on what college you go to and what you. I mean,
true, because you play like on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, part of the allure is Friday night everybody's coming out. High school ball there's nothing like it, right? And then you go to college and it doesn't feel like that. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
It's almost the opposite with baseball. Although I think high school baseball can be really, really close as well. But you go to college baseball is closer knit. It's more like high school football in that sense. So, yeah.
Yep.
Hey, I actually did have a few other things in terms of criteria.
Okay.
They're not big things, but like things like level of excitement and entertainment value for people who are watching it.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing. Like, what kind of crowd might you draw in terms of people want to go and watch you play. People want to watch the sport,
right?
That aren't interested, that aren't
football, soccer,
that aren't able to play it. Maybe,
yeah.
Opportunities for athletic achievement and skill development. Like I'm actually becoming a better physical athlete the more I play this, and developing, certain skills. And of course, the health and fitness benefits, a sense of community and social connection. Like what we were just talking about with high school football and college baseball, building friendships inside the sport itself. What does the sport do to help you build friendships? Significant family significance. I think. I mean, of course, again, that's subjective depending on the family and the person. Sure. But and then accessibility and ease of participation.
Yeah,
you mentioned
kind of the same thing as the low cost idea.
So yeah. So we've thrown out a lot. I mean, hockey, gymnastics, boxing, MMA, wrestling, tennis, and Australian football.
How many have we? I did
water polo. We didn't say that.
Didn't say water polo. No. Swimming.
I did find out something about water polo though that is fascinating to me.
What's that?
You cannot, during the entire time that you're in the middle of competition playing, your feet can't hit the floor of the pool.
Oh, well, how deep?
You're treading water. Your feet can't hit the pool.
But how deep is the pool? I mean,
that's deep enough that you can't touch the bottom.
Probably like 10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is, have you tried to tread water for 10 minutes?
Not in a long time.
I mean, I do it all the time. I go to my parents and it's just, and I'll get out there and just be
you go swimming at your parents?
It's been a while. Been a few weeks since I've been down there. I'll invite you next time I go.
Surprised I never get an invite.
But listen, trying to tread water for 10 minutes isn't easy.
No, there's a thing on the internet. I don't know. We can link it if I could find it, but it's it's a video, and you fall overboard a boat, and you have to move the mouse. You just move the mouse to stay afloat.
Just to stay afloat. And all you're doing is this.
All you're doing is this. And you lose. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is how long you got to try. You got to do this.
And now you got to do it like this. So you're out there trying to tread water, and you got people tossing a ball at your face.
Yeah.
And you're trying to score and take the ball, people slamming into you and everything else.
Yeah.
Water polo, a tough sport.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt. For sure.
Now you have to have a pool. Accessibility
has to be heated. No, it has to be heated.
Right.
Would be if I had gotten up.
Downhill skiing, surfing,
luge,
things like
luge skiing, luge.
Yeah. The luge, that might be the least. Is the luge the one where you sit on a sled, like you get in and you're like tucked in this sled, and then someone pushes you?
Well, you gotta steer it.
You're in like a pipe, aren't you? Like a ditch going down.
What is that? Maybe that's.
I'm like,
what's cool
Jerry
running?
Seinfeld has
Cool
actually
Runnings
talked
is the
about,
movie.
some athletes they are. Look at how he pointed his toes inside that.
Oh, jeez. I don't know.
All right.
A luge, there's a
The luge is just your body.
Yeah, and
right.
you're directing it.
I maybe bobsledding.
And like you can die in a luge. So I mean,
that's dangerous.
you know.
Yeah, maybe it's bobsledding.
Bobsledding.
It's got multiple people though.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought it was.
I don't know.
What you're talking about. That was what Cool Runnings was bobsledding.
Yeah.
You ever seen that movie?
And they have a team of people that runs and pushes them, right?
No, they run, they push it, and then they jump in.
Yeah.
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 Tough
There's
stuff.
all kinds of sports out
I'm
there.
afraid we're going to forget a sport and someone's going to.
What is we got to go here soon. What's the perfect sport according to our criteria?
Man. The discussion has derailed me because honestly, I was thinking coming in that wrestling had a strong.
Just because they're not perfect doesn't mean that they don't.
Well, right.
That they don't. I mean,
they're not the perfect sport.
The point is, we haven't found the perfect sport. There is no perfect sport, as there is no perfect person.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because people are playing these sports and people are governing these sports. Therefore, there is no way they could be perfect.
True. Well, of course, we're talking about everything underneath baseball.
Yes.
I mean,
Oh yeah. This whole discussion, this whole hour has been
not including
besides baseball.
Right.
What is the perfect sport?
Yeah.
Because
so it's tough
you got
to
the
pick.
no clock thing. You got no fouling or penalties.
Play with
in
a
baseball.
stick and a rock.
It requires skill at every. It requires athletic skill at every single position that on the field.
It does.
In
multiple parts of the body.
Baseball is a sport that requires every person to have to be able to throw, catch, and run.
Yeah.
If you're playing it.
Yeah.
Every person that's engaged in the game has to be able to do those three things.
Yep.
What other sport has that? Give me a sport that has that. That requirement. Baseball is the only sport where the defense has the ball, the possession of the ball. Can you think of another
I never
sport
thought about that one.
I'm just tossing out the beauties of the game.
Always
of
get the
baseball.
opportunity. We talk about that.
There's
a
probably
winner or a
no
loser.
more beautiful playing surface and unique field of play than a baseball field.
Unless you're playing in July.
I mean, you're not
in the middle of a drought.
I mean, most sports you got a rectangular shape thing where the two teams are running back and forth.
That's
on
true.
a rectangle.
That's true.
Baseball,
Australian football has the oval. That's a fair argument.
Yeah, and they're still going one direction or another.
All right.
But back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You don't have that. You're running in all different directions in baseball.
Yeah.
With and without the ball.
There's not a lot of scoring in baseball.
There is
Always.
but there often is.
There often is,
But that's the thing. That's what makes the low scoring games so exciting, is that there often is high scoring. Most games have between 7 and 4. What?
that's true. As opposed to games that, other sports that really there isn't a lot of scoring.
Yeah. Some people might, give me the big argument, well, it's a slow paced game. I think that's a positive. I think the slower pace is a positive for the game of baseball.
Well, I tell
it's
you
often
this.
seen as a negative. But go ahead. I'll tell you why I think it's a positive.
Well, I know one reason why. That's the challenge of a will.
Yes.
Because you have to maintain mental focus.
Elevates the tension
Absolutely.
in between moments.
Yeah,
right? But at the same time, those in between moments allow you to take it in and enjoy it a little bit too.
If you're good at it.
If you're good at it.
You got to practice it.
Yeah.
You got to know what you're doing. Yeah.
So even in the slow moments, your mind is running 1,000 miles per hour, right? And you have to focus.
Involves team strategy.
Yeah.
You can't just, there's not just one person.
The longevity of being able to play it.
Yes,
Have you
I
thought about going
that.
out and playing a football game at 47
No, as a
years
matter of
old?
fact, I went and watched.
Like I said, my last time I played was like 47.
I went and watched those the semi-pro the tri-state Longhorns that are housed in Middleport, Ohio.
That's in my parents' backyard.
Hey, those
guys are
guys,
nuts,
they
man.
play their hearts out. And
They
I'm
do.
like,
Practicing in 99
Coach,
degree
I played
heat.
2 softball games Saturday, and I could barely walk yesterday.
Listen, we're talking about athletic stuff here. So don't bring slow pitch into it.
Co-ed slow pitch softball. I don't want to play again. But I could barely walk, so no, I'm not going to play. And basketball, very bad on your knees. It's hard. You got to stay conditioned. We never mentioned golf today. But because I think
golf
fits
is a
into lot of that.
difficult sport to play. It's
Very
a difficult. It's probably the most difficult sport to master.
Got to have a lot of skill.
Um,
You score every hole.
You have to have a little bit of endurance if you,
You might
actually
score
walk.
bad, you might score good, but you score every hole.
Are you? What was your one of your first criteria? Fully engaged.
Low cost kind of kicks it out.
It kicks it out. Yeah.
You got to be fully engaged during live
Well,
ball
I
periods.
guess
There isn't a lot of
There
live.
really isn't a live. I mean, once you hit it, how engaged do you have to be?
Yeah, I don't know. There might be a team aspect too.
There's
with
not
your
a lot
caddy.
of live ball period going on. In
Not
golf.
really.
I mean,
yeah. Once you hit it, I
Listen,
guess
I
the
love
live
golf,
period is
but-
during the swing, and that's it.
Yeah.
So there's probably not a lot of that.
longevity of being able to play it.
Will, you can play forever.
That's right.
Challenge of will, against the elements, maybe. Right. Not going to say you don't have to be an athlete to play golf because like Tiger Woods has kind of changed that.
Yeah, no doubt.
For everyone wants to be
doubt.
athletes now to play, but
The beauty of the playing surfaces
that's true.
and the uniqueness of the
Some
playing.
people just go out on a golf course to hang out. I do.
Just build a house near one.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they get mad when golf balls go through your window.
But to get back to the perfect sport, baseball, it is the most comprehensive and purest expression of human culture.
You think it relates
In
to
the realm
life?
of athleticism, in the realm of intelligence, in the realm of judgment, in the realm of strategy and challenge of will. I mean, think of the possibilities of what can happen when the ball is put in play. In the game of baseball, there are far greater possibilities of what is going to happen than in any other sport.
Yeah.
I will argue that.
Yeah. That's why they say you might see something you've never seen before. And that's why it happens
You
often.
will always see something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
You hear these old announcers, 85 years old, saying, I thought I've seen everything in the game of baseball and just saw something I've never seen before.
Right.
How many games have they called? Yeah.
I don't think anyone out there is arguing that baseball's not the perfect sport. We were trying to find the second, I think.
Yeah, the second.
But I'm not really sure what it is. It goes back to what you said, that it's everything has its positives and negatives, but it's hard to.
And it ultimately comes down to personal preference.
Sure, because our criteria may not,
Yeah, somebody else might be like, well, like your criteria isn't what my criteria would be.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
and that would defeat everything. Yeah. So, but
Yeah. So whatever you as an individual find the most enjoyable and fulfilling, satisfying, challenging, athletic experience that aligns with your interests and your goals, that's your perfect sport.
Yep. And everyone just said baseball, so
That's right.
it clears it up.
Yep. Baseball it is. I bet if you polled our audience,
Probably.
right? Let's send that poll out there. So I do know some folks. I listen. I had baseball guys who mentioned other sports besides baseball.
Yeah,
because they're thinking, like,
Sure.
we got to think of something different.
Right. We got to make it enjoyable for everyone. For the second place people.
That's right. That was
Thanks
fun.
for joining us.
This
Yeah, it was
fun.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Cool.
So maybe we'll come up with more as we go. See you, everyone.